do this all day. A bunch of a-holes. Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Hello and welcome back to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me today is Matt Hartgrove.
Hey everybody!
Threw that off. Yeah, I'm so sorry. and Logan Stump.
So this is what it feels to be last in everyone's world.
Yep, if
Just
you ain't first, you're last, though, too. So that means Matt's last as well.
It's kind of like being short. Everybody, you have to look up at everybody. I know Logan.
Yeah,
I guess
I guess the phrase is not really "I see right through you." It's more like "I see right over you" kind of thing.
I wouldn't know.
We are talking Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 2, The Star-Spangled Man, directed by Kerry Skoglund, written by Michael Castelline, and premiered March 26, 2021 on Disney+. So let's just a brief summary. Episode description. John Walker is named Captain America, and Sam and Bucky team up against a rebel group. So we'll start with our initial thoughts, and since Matt likes being last, we'll start with Logan this time.
Oh, this is a fun episode. Probably one of my favorite episodes in a TV show that I've watched. And God, I don't even know when the last one I watched that was. I mean, I guess if you go all the way back to what is it? Is it the Purple Wedding? Is that what it's called for Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go back to
Isn't it
that
the
one,
Red Wedding? Or which one's the Purple Wedding? I'm now
I thought it was purple.
Purple Wedding is Joffrey.
Yeah.
Red Wedding is all the other stars.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's the last time I watched an episode where I was just, tuned in the whole time, just sitting on the. This one, same kind of thing. It had that, feel that you really wanted. I think it the way that it starts, it's quickly into, and we'll get into kind of the plot, but it gets quickly into what everybody wants to see in an episode. And I was like, man, this is going to be really good. And it starts out right away with them meeting up and getting into like that whole banter back and forth between the two. And then from that start to the very end, it had me the whole time.
Matt, your initial thoughts on the Star-Spangled Man?
I'm kind of in agreement with Logan. Not, I guess, in full agreement, because I don't remember what the Purple Wedding. I didn't realize it was called that, but it was honestly, it was the best episode that they've done in any of their TV shows, which I know there's only 2, but I thought a lot of the episodes we've watched have been really, really good. But this one just felt like it had everything a Marvel movie has in terms of the comedy between characters, the action, the moving of the plot line, and they even took like serious scenarios into case as well, which I thought was really, really good for the episode, but also brought together a few characters that seemed to have some issues with each other. But yeah, I thought the episode had everything you would want, and it makes me sad there's only 6 episodes of this show, because I really would like to see this one be like 8-9 episodes because of how good the first 2 have been.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode as well. I think, the first episode was a lot of setup. This episode paid a lot of that off. Like, I really wanted to see these 2 characters, come together, and we got to see it in this episode a bunch. I also really, really liked the portrayal of John Walker and Lamar Hoskins in this episode as well. I'm very curious to see what those, what that entails going forward. And also, I thought, Enfys Nest herself, Erin Kellyman plays Carly Morgenthau. Is that how you say it? Morgenthau, which was the leader of the Flag Smashers. So I thought she was great in it too. So I guess let's kind of dig in to the plot here. Opens up with Walker appearing on Good Morning America. He's in the locker room of his old high school. Checks out his old locker. They're doing some sort of unveiling. I guess this is taking place after the initial unveiling on the steps of, I guess, the Capitol, wherever they were last time. We get his, I guess, girlfriend. It wasn't very clear if his girlfriend, wife, or old girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, like what exactly her role was. She's talking to him. Then we get Lamar Hoskins, which is, one of his friends, comes over and starts talking to him as well. Kind of like telling him that, calm down, like you got this type of thing, but you also are in a much bigger role than what you're used to. And he was, a little nervous, and, he opens up the zipper of the costume, and we kind of see the new Captain America costume, which I want to get just your thoughts on the costume, because it's not our typical Captain America look. And I was wondering, like, are they going to call him Captain America? Are they going to call him U.S. Agent like he is in the comics? Like, what is his, and what's he going to be called? But they are calling him Captain America. They got like a new looking A that looks like a star. Logan, what's your thoughts on how the costume looks? Not who's wearing it, but just overall, could you imagine Steve Rogers in this costume?
No, especially towards the end, because he kind of goes a little darker. And especially because this thing looks like when Halloween costumes come out and they try to make it look like the one, and they're kind of that rundown
like a knockoff
version. Yeah, like it's like a knockoff version that you'd get at like the Halloween stores, especially here in Orlando. We got tons of them. So, but yeah, no, when I look at it, it's just not the same. I hate the A. It kind of throws me off because it kind of goes onto that strap for his shield that he wears in the back. So. No, I don't like it. I think the helmet looks goofy on him because it's just not rounded. It's kind of like flat on the top. It looks very, I guess, cheap. It kind of looks like the Walmart version of Captain America, whereas Captain America's looks more like the Target version. Not to compare the two, but I just did. So, yeah, no, I don't like it. I don't like the three stripes. It's nothing that I could see Steve wearing, especially as he got into more of the darker colors for this Captain America. But yeah, I just don't like it, and not to mention that you said not to mention the guy in it, but just the jawline it's weird because it's not Steve, and you're just used to looking at such a handsome man in Chris Evans. So yeah, no, I don't really care much for it.
Matt, any thoughts here on the costume?
It kind of felt like it kind of felt like almost a commercial version of it. Like they're trying to sell people on them. So they tried to make it a little bit more updated, try to make it a little bit more right for the times. I guess I'm assuming it's like 2023 in these shows, if it's after the blip.
Yeah, because that's 5 years from 2018. Yeah, so we're almost caught up to that, but yeah.
But yeah, it just feels like they tried to modernize it and to an extent, and I agree, Logan. I don't think we would ever see, Steve Rogers in that costume. I think he's much more into the original and what he wore back in the 40s and trying to make sure he kept to the same person he was back then when wearing the costume or the uniform. But yeah, it just felt like a modernized version of it, which I didn't hate it, but it's not the same one that we're all used to.
I think you summed it up pretty well there about the almost like how you said, like a rebrand, right? That's what it kind of is like, is we don't just want a normal A. How do we spice it up, right? What if we made the A a star, right? And what if we, had stripes going horizontal instead of vertical, like trying to streamline it, almost like when you see like new or MLB teams or NFL teams kind of like rebrand their look and try to modernize it. but it's just not as good as the classic. It'd be like, you know, as much as I hate them, the Yankees moving on from pinstripes to like vertical
Right.
stripes, you know,
Yep.
or to horizontal stripes. I mean, because you know you're messing with something that's a classic, right? Um, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of the A as a star. I'm like, I don't know, I'm kind of half on it, I guess. I think it'll be fine if they go the route I think they're gonna go afterwards, but um. So yeah, he's on Good Morning America. We kind of get his background, right, where he was a football player at the school. He's Medal of Honor 3 times, I think they said, and has led numerous expeditions or around for the military. He's done all this great stuff. He's a war hero, and he I'm not sure exactly. I don't have it written down here exactly what he said here, but pretty much.
Yeah, he's talking about Steve. Like he was talking about, like, did you know Steve Rogers? And
Yeah,
he's like, yeah, like I knew of him, and I kind of at this point, sorry to interrupt, but like at this point, I was sitting there going, I want to hate this guy, but like he is kind of a good role for this Captain America. I mean, it's not like he's some dude off the street. I mean, he's
right.
very decorated.
And I think that's what they really want to push, right? The government's pushing, this guy's a war hero. He's perfect for Captain America. One thing I do want to say that is interesting that he said on this interview with Good Morning America is that he doesn't have super strength, right? So he has not been given the serum. As we'll also see in action later, he has not been given the serum. But they show clips of him like learning how to throw the shield. He says about how he's never met Cap, but he feels like he's like a brother to him or whatever, and that was kind of the line that I was like, I'm not sure if you're the right person to be saying that, man. You can't say you've never met this person, but they feel like they're your brother. But we see Bucky watching this on TV, and then we kind of get the cut over to Sam about to go on this new mission, and he's it was cut to the credits, actually, the Marvel logo and all that. And then we have Sam getting ready to go on a mission in Germany, and they have posters of this Captain America everywhere in this army base, an Air Force base, I guess, that he's about to be leaving, and Bucky tracked him down. He's there. And what was your thoughts, Matt, on being able to see your boy Sebastian Stan teamed up with Sam Wilson?
I loved it. They have really good chemistry together in terms of their characters, because they hate each other, but not to. They don't hate each other, but you can tell that for some reason they want to be friends, but they also feel like they can't be friends, and there's something blocking that. But I loved it when they met up with each other, because they were the big three conversation that they had, where he's like, androids, what was it?
Yes.
Androids,
aliens, and wizards.
And then Bucky's like, well, what about Doctor Strange? And he's like, well, he's a sorcerer. And I was like, I always love when it's such a weird thing, but I love when the different Avengers make a comment about another Avenger, like in the second Spider-Man movie, where Tom Holland's like, what about Doctor Strange? And he's like, well, what about, like, why couldn't you get
the
this
Marvel
one?
Yep.
Yeah, like I always like when they do that, but like you could tell from the start that we obviously don't know what really was going on between them at the time, and I think that's what this episode does really well, is you actually see why. There's one line from Bucky that I'm sure we'll get to like later in the show, where you see what the issue is between the two of them.
Right, and why he hasn't been answering his messages, right? In the first episode, his doctor says, you haven't been answering Sam's messages, you know, when he gives him the phone,
And we said it in the last episode that we're pretty confident that the shield being with John Walker was going to be what causes them to meet up, which it is, because you see Bucky watching it, and then all of a sudden Bucky pops up out of nowhere and is just like, hey, I'm coming with you to Germany. And then they like go over everything, and I was like, okay, this is when the show's going to really start, because we're going to start seeing them in action with each other. And it's a really good dynamic. And the fact that they both have ties to Captain America, you just want to know why do you guys not seem to like each other? Because you're both like best friends with Steve Rogers, and for the most part, he's like a really great guy in terms of how he acts. So why do you guys hate each other? Like, what really is going on here? And even though everything is pretty much answered in the episode, they do a really good job of hiding it or like not letting you know, and you're just kind of sitting there watching them fly out to Germany, and then you're watching them. I'm sure we'll get to the scene with the trucks. You're just like, okay, so you guys are still a really good team. Like, what is really going on here? And it was great. I was so happy that they met up, and that was the part I was really, really excited about with the show, was watching the two of them in action together, but also they still had that Marvel like movie sense of humor. Like every Marvel movie has those funny little side comments, conversations where they make jokes even though they're trying to be really serious. And I think that's what really drew me into the episode. The moment when he said like Doctor Strange, or he's a sorcerer, I was laughing, and I was like, okay, like this episode's gonna be great. I already know it's gonna be a really, really good episode.
Yeah, I really liked Bucky's line of like, what, you're like fighting Gandalf or something.
Yeah.
And he was like, how do you even know like who Gandalf is?
Yeah.
Because I read The Hobbit in 1937 when it first came out.
Well, that goes along with like when they're talking about that, and like he's talking to Bucky, and Sam's like gets mad at him because Bucky's like, you should never give up the shield, and Sam goes, you're not gonna come in here and with your overextended life and tell me about my rights.
Right.
It's like part of that. I mean, just the whole thing, like Matt said, I was rolling at this point.
Logan, I see them as not like hating each other. I see it as like almost like a familial relationship, right? They're kind of part of the Captain America family. They're not always going to get along, but they're ultimately there for each other.
Steve's the older brother, and Bucky and Sam are the younger siblings, and the older brother's just trying to keep it peaceful at this point, I think. Or
Bucky's the middle child,
yeah,
right?
right.
And Sam is the youngest child because he got the shield.
Right. So it's kind of like, all right, keep the peace. Only I get to pick on you. And again, we get into lines like that when Sam keeps calling him Buck, and he's like, don't call me Buck. Only Steve gets to call me Buck. So yeah, it is. It's kind of like that playful banter. And just like Matt said, it brings me back to Tom Holland, the whole wizard stuff, and just kind of the banter that even that Tony and Spider-Man have, because I think it's kind of that same dynamic where they bicker.
So they get on the plane, right? There's a plan, maybe. Bucky doesn't think there's a plan, but Sam's not telling him the plan, right? And it is they get a little lower, and I think it was Torres, who we were introduced to last time, tells Sam it's time to jump. Who goes out there with his wings, and there is parachutes, but they're too low for parachuting. So Bucky decides to just jump out and I guess use his arm as like the thing that's leading his descent here. He's very lucky he didn't get even more hurt, because I mean it's just his arm that's metal, right? And I don't think they've changed everything in him.
No, yeah, it's just his arm.
Vibranium arm too. But then we get Red Wing. That's Falcon's little android robot bird, and Bucky doesn't like Red Wing. I think that was already nobody really likes Red Wing. I think in Civil War, I'm pretty sure Black Widow or Scarlet Witch say something about Red Wing. I think it might be Widow that says something about it when in that opening Lagos scene. But anyway, they Bucky says, get out of his face or else he's going to kill it, smash it. And then he is told to go north, and they're in like this warehouse, and we see these people lifting heavy things, the Flag Smashers. They're lifting heavy things, so it seems to be that they're on super soldier serum. And we get a great scene of them just like kind of bickering on what is the correct action to take, right? Bucky wants to go in full steam ahead, right? He just wants to go. He's like, there's only two guys. Sam is using Red Wing to show that there is like five guys, and he wants to kind of scope it out more before they do anything. Ultimately, Bucky listens to Sam, and Sam actually notices that there's somebody hidden away in the back of the truck, and they, as soon as the truck gets going, they start taking after them, and Bucky just jumps out of nowhere. You know what? Okay, so this is something that I was wondering. Bucky jumps into the first truck. Is the driver of the second truck just like not paying attention, or is he just like, fine?
Thank you. I
Yes,
said the
exactly.
same thing. Well, I said the same thing. I was like, isn't the other driver going to be like, why is this dude running up and jumping on the back of the truck and not like trying to ram into him or
The only
something?
thing I can see is that they knew this was coming. I think they knew they
Yeah.
were coming because you have Carly, the leader in the back, tucked away, almost like expecting them to try to save her.
Mhm.
And she just gets that smile on her face and just kicks the heck out of Bucky out of the car and out of the truck and into the windshield of the second truck.
I was gonna say it's kind of like that because he goes, I got the hostage, but and she comes out much like a hostage does, and kind of just looks at him in the eye, and looks really quiet and just non-threatening, and then like a flag smasher just absolutely just stomps Bucky into that windshield, and I was like, oh, it's game on now.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I kind of saw a lot of the trailers. I paid a lot of attention and knew that this girl was going to be playing the lead flag smasher. Did this take you guys at all by surprise?
Not really. I was like, this is not good. The way that she's approaching him just kind of looks like this evil, kind of demented person that's just going to absolutely smash Bucky.
No pun intended there with the flag smasher, right?
Yeah, no, no, I was actually not even thinking. But yeah, sure, let's go with I planned that out and wrote that into my show notes.
Matt, were you shocked at all that she was going? I didn't know she had the super strength, but as soon as I saw her, I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
she's definitely the. It didn't really take me by
Yeah,
surprise.
I was gonna say it didn't because I think it's the last preview trailer they released. She's clearly the one that breaks Red Wing in the trailer. Like she catches it,
Oh, okay.
and I
Like
was
she does in
like,
this episode, yeah.
yeah, it's the clip from this episode. I was like, yeah, I didn't know obviously that she was the leader. I think that was kind of hard to understand because they don't really tell you who's leading the Flag Smashers, but you knew that this character was 100% not like human. There's something up with her, and she was not a hostage whatsoever. And I think even the look she gave of like I'm scared, but then you're like, that's she's gonna beat the crap out of you in like 2 seconds. Like the moment you let your guard down, she's smart enough. You're gonna let your guard down for a second, and then she's gonna kick you out of the truck, which she did.
And then we get, they start doing this whole fight with the flag smashers, and then we get Captain America saving the day. Here comes John Walker and Lamar Hoskins dropping in from a helicopter onto the trucks, and we get some good old fashioned Captain America fighting with the shield. And one thing I really liked, I thought this was really cool scene, is when Lamar Hoskins is falling off the truck, and John just like throws the shield to like break his fall and catch him. I thought that was really awesome.
It was very Cap.
Yes.
Like you said, it does. It shows. Without the serum, he's not going to be Cap, obviously. But like when he throws the shield, it was like, okay, so this guy, like I said, you want to hate him because he's not Captain America, but it's really hard to.
That we're just going with the whole truck scene, like the battle
Yeah.
scene, or right when they came in.
No, you can talk the whole battle scene.
I would say my two favorite parts on that scene were one when what is it? It's Carly, right?
Yes. Yep.
When she breaks Red Wing and Bucky goes, "You don't know how long I've wanted to do that." She was like,
yeah.
But like I thought was so cool was so like John Walker is coming in, and obviously he knows Bucky and Sam are Avengers, but Sam Walker or John Walker is tossing around the shield, hitting them. But I love Bucky catching it as if it's like nothing. Because I know it's probably easier in the show for certain people to do it because you see a clip of John Walker practicing with it, and clearly he can do it. But I just loved how, for any probably normal person, they can not even get close. And Bucky just no issue, just catches it, just like right there in his hands after one. And even though he gives it right back, it was just like there's something about him catching it that I was like, man, that's so cool. Like how he can just do that. Because I know we're gonna get the clip later somewhere in the show of him catching the knife just like that.
Yeah, he also catches the shield in Winter Soldier a little differently, but it yeah, I guess let's talk about it. He respects, I guess, Sam's decision, right? He gives the shield right back to John Walker.
I think that's just more. I think that's just more of the battle scene because he's the one with it. Because I don't think until we get closer to the end of the episode, maybe does Bucky really understand the giving away of the shield. I still think he's pretty upset about it.
I think he's upset about it, but I think he on a subconscious level must look. Here's the thing. I mean, really, I think Winter Soldier could take all these guys if he just kept the shield and and started throwing it around, and there'd be no need for John Walker at all. We also get Lamar Hoskins. He has a call name as well. His name's Battlestar, and that's in the comics as well. But what's interesting? Okay, so like I said, I read this story arc about a year ago before when I thought this show was coming out in August. And, the storyline is Cap gives up the shield. They bring in John Walker. They give him super soldier serum. And Lamar Hoskins is one of his, war buddies, army buddies. And they bring him on as a Bucky, right? So like in the comics originally, while Bucky Barnes is a person as well, Captain America was known for being Captain America with his pal Bucky in the original, comics and such. And then it's, they wanted this Captain America to have his own Bucky as well. And that's what he went by for a little bit before he changed his name to Battlestar, which is just a really cool name. I do like Battlestar a lot. It's still patriotic, right? You got the star, in there. But all of them get their butts handed to them in this fight with there's 8 super soldier serum people or whatever in this battle, so it doesn't end well for them, and we get Sam and Bucky walking a long way on a long road trying to get back to somewhere, I guess back to the ship, and we get John Walker and Hoskins pulling up in a military vehicle, ask him for a ride. I like this where he swings the door open and they just keep walking.
Yeah.
But he makes a good point that they're like 20 miles, I think he said, away from civilization. Mm-hmm. So they do jump in, and they just have this is kind of where we get a chat of Walker saying he's not trying to be Steve. He's trying to just be the best Captain America he can be. And, I thought they did really well here with this scene because it does make you want to, for me anyway, I was like, come on, just work with the guy, right? But I can see why they don't want to work with the guy. I think that kind of changes later, obviously. I do think there's a bit of John Walker putting on a bit of a show, especially at the one line that really made them pull over, right, is that he wanted Captain America's sidekicks, right? He said, if I have their wingmen, if I have Captain America's wingmen, then in his eyes, it's not so much about being friends with these guys. It's about if they are working with him, it makes him look like a legitimate Captain America.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes. As far as the truck is concerned. Just kind of going through it. I leading up to this scene is fun too, because it kind of sets up some of the conversations that they have about Captain America, what it means to be Captain America, and different things like that. One of my favorite lines in the whole episode was when Sam's like, "What's going on in that big cyborg brain of yours?" And Bucky's like, "It's computing." And then that's when Sam kind of gives him a hard time. He goes, "You know what? I can actually see it. I can see the gears turn. Oh, they're malfunctioning. They're shutting down. Yep, they're on fire." And you can just tell he's kind of just still picking at Sam, or Sam's still picking at Bucky, and it really sets up a good scene because then they get to have that conversation. And like you said, Jordan, I mean, John eventually, I think you get like are they going to work with them? Or are they not? It's kind of like that fork in the road where, do I choose to work with them and kind of go against some of my principles? Because you get a really good sense here that John's the government, like he calls himself the government, which I mean, Steve does at first, but then Steve's like, no, I don't really like that. I don't like being used. And then that's when you get Sam kind of, Sam and Bucky really, and Bucky, I mean, Bucky's known Steve way longer, so I think Bucky's got even more of an emotional side of Steve and everything that Captain America is supposed to represent.
Yeah, he wants him to join the Global Reparations Council to quash the ongoing violent post-blip revolutions. So yeah, and when he says the government, he points at himself, right? And that's not what Cap is supposed to be. Cap is supposed to be kind of free of the government. And here's what I read. Somebody online said this, and I think that makes sense. Like, they can see why John Walker was picked, but John Walker is not the best person for Captain America because John Walker was a soldier first, right?
Right.
While Cap actually never got accepted into the military until he became strong and they made him Captain America. So it was like totally different, he was Captain America first and kept all of his ideals and then got kind of mixed in with the military.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many good. This was my favorite scene of the whole episode, just because of the things that we go back and forth. You get a lot of cursing too, like as far as like this isn't something that kids. I don't know, as a parent, maybe they're a little older, yeah, but like if you're letting your 8-year-old watch this, then there's some stuff they say in here that it's kind of like,
I'm fine with it. I mean, they say this stuff in the movies.
That's true, yeah. So if they're watching the movies, I guess. But no, it is. There's a bunch of stuff in there. Basically, it's like a grilling of John trying to figure out, like, is he really worth it? I mean, like, have you ever jumped on top of a grenade?
4 times, but it's with the helmet, right? Like, he's not throwing his whole life down. It's just, I got this special helmet that protects it. Yeah.
Right. So you just get, I mean, the whole thing.
What I liked about with them on the truck was that I felt like when I was watching it, John Walker and Lamar Hoskins, they want to work with them. And it to an extent, I almost kind of was like, this guy isn't as bad. It made me not think. It made me think that John Walker and Lamar Hoskins. What does he call himself again? Battlestar.
Yes, Battlestar. Yep.
Yeah. I remember Battlestar Galactica. I remember that. Beats Battlestar. No, that's a completely different show. So we're not going to do the Office. But when I was watching, I was like, I kind of was almost on their side of it. I was like, just work with them. Like, I understand their whole thing with the shield, and obviously it's rough to see somebody else have it that is not Steve Rogers, and I understand their frustration. But part of me was kind of watching it going, they're being really rude to these guys for not much of a reason other than holding the shield. And I kind of was I'm more on their side of it right now, and I don't know if I like that. I was like, I want to be on Falcon and Winter Soldier's side of whatever issue they're having, if they have one with these guys. But in that moment, I was like, why? Just like agree. These guys are super soldiers. Like, you guys can work together to see what you can do. But I still understand it from their viewpoint because of Steve Rogers and the Shield. There's a lot more in depth to it than just working together. But it was weird to watch a part of that episode where I was like, I almost don't like Bucky and Sam as much right now, just because it seemed like they weren't being as efficient or productive as they could have been if they were just with them at that point.
Right. Yeah, it's I think ultimately they're going to be right on the money, about John, but I think at this point, John's putting on a face. I think, like I said, I think he kind of slips up a bit when he says, I need Captain America's wingmen, because I think it is trying to just show that, okay, you just want to be legitimate. So I think they have a legitimate beef there, but before that, it just seems to be rude. Then we get my favorite scene when the Baltimore title card came up.
I thought of you right away. I was like, oh my god. It's
What
like,
if just Logan? Not about only Jordan.
well,
Logan?
you're
Not
well.
about...
He's still no.
You're
like,
from Baltimore, Matt, but you hate
yeah,
Baltimore, so there's a
yeah.
difference.
That's a good
Like
point.
your
I know.
your affinity for Baltimore is not as high, and plus Jordan's still like around that area, so that's why I thought like if it said Orlando, you probably would have come to my mind, Matt. But like it wasn't us, so it was Jordan.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Baltimore. I was so excited to see that. I was like, I literally said Baltimore like in my living room. I was like, this is great. Um, uh, they got the cops dead on though. I tell you that.
I was gonna say that sounded about right, didn't it? Gosh, I was like they're gonna shut down the
with
Orioles
their
game.
corruption.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but we get, they're kind of like, who can we get? There's 8 super soldiers. Who could we possibly get to help us? And Bucky says he knows somebody, right? So they get to this house in Baltimore, and we get to the door. They're asking for Isaiah Bradley. This is a comic book character as well. So this is another comic book character, and this is a veteran super soldier who fought against Bucky in the Vietnam War Korean War, when Bucky was still a Winter Soldier. So Bradley has his grandson, who's another comic character named what was his name?
I saw a couple TikToks about
Eli.
it too last night.
Eli
but
Bradley.
I didn't know either of those characters till this episode.
Yeah, Eli Bradley is known as Patriot. He's a young Avenger in the Young Avengers comic books. He kind of like is running interference at the door. He's like, no, there's no Isaiah here. And Bucky says, he kind of gives him, I forget what story it was, but like, hey, I'm the guy from this thing. Like, tell him that and he'll remember me. Like a battle that they had. And Eli comes back to the door and says he wants to see you, like pretty much just to see if it's actually you. Like, he doesn't really want to talk all that much, right? And we get them welcoming him in. He's played by Carl Lumbly, and it's Isaiah Bradley. This is a comic book character, still kind of recent. 2003 was his first appearance, but the background in the comics is kind of like this, where when Cap was, I'm not sure if it was when he was on, if Cap was around at this time or not in the comics, but it's during World War II in the comics that they bring out Isaiah Bradley, and they give him a super soldier serum, and it was like they were doing tests on African Americans, and I guess some of them, only 5 subjects survived, and Bradley was one of them, and he kind of did some underground missions that has made him like a kind of like a forgotten Captain America. In this, they kind of moved him to the Korean War, and somebody posted this on, I guess it was Reddit or something, that they thought that was interesting, that they made kind of the forgotten Captain America the Captain America for like the Forgotten War. Like, nobody really talks about the Korean War all that much. You get the Vietnam War, you get World War II, World War I. Like, we just kind of forget that we were even in on this conflict. So maybe that's what they were going for there, or they just picked another war, I guess. And he refuses to help, right? He even says something to Bucky about like your people. Which at the time you're thinking he means like white people, but Bucky later points out he means Hydra. Hydra was my people. And when we get out into the street, Sam's upset that nobody even talks about this guy. Like, wait, there was a Captain America in like the 70s. Is that when the Korean War was? Don't even recall right now. The 50s. There you go.
Yeah, 50s.
I think it was in the 50s. I was
Vietnam was 70s.
Yeah, Vietnam was the 70s. I'm a history major too. There you go.
My grandfather fought in the Korean War. So
really?
I was like, yeah. So like when they said Korean War, I was like, oh man, that's the one my grandfather fought in.
My grandpa fought World War II. Take that.
I
isn't- this
because my
isn't a-
great grandfather was in World War II, I think, or
I'm
World
just ready
War
to
One.
argue with Matt today.
I was gonna say that they're all heroes. They're all heroes. We don't have to.
They are.
We don't
World
have to
War
argue
One,
over
Two,
that one.
and the Korean War. That's pretty cool. And no Vietnams, though, do we?
Guess what?
Oh,
I fought in the Civil War. I never told you guys, but
Wow, you're
Yeah.
old, Matt.
I was with Captain America.
yeah,
I'm
yeah. All
older.
these heroes fought in the Civil War as well, I guess, right?
Emotional.
But we get out in the streets. Sam is upset nobody talks about this guy. Like, wait, there was a black Captain America that nobody even talks about. Like,
Mhm.
why? You know why, right? It was kind of swept under the rug, and and we get, the cops pulling up. Good old Baltimore PD here, and they ask Bucky if Sam's bothering him, and they ask Sam for his ID. And the good twist on this is actually that it was actually Bucky that is the warrant out for his arrest. But and I like that Sam says, well, they pardon him for that, and they're like, no, it's for missing your court mandated therapy. But
Yeah.
We get with this whole thing, it's 2 episodes in a row now that Sam gets recognized, right? Like the first time it's trying to get a bank loan, and the guy's like, you look familiar, and he's like, oh, I'm Falcon. This time he's in trouble, but he doesn't pull out the card that time, right? He doesn't pull out the I'm famous card. It's the other cop notices and says, this is Sam Wilson. And only because Bucky says, like, do you know who this guy is? But yeah, and
Jordan, you forgot that one part too. They got recognized by the kid. And he goes, "Hey, it's Black Falcon. What's up?"
Yeah, Black Falcon.
He's like, "Black Falcon. Why do you call me Black Falcon? Because I'm black and I'm the Falcon." And the kid goes, "Yeah, I mean technically yes." And then he goes,
He's
"So
like, "What are you, black kid?"
Black kid.
Well, also earlier in the thing when he says, "What, you come out of Wakanda and you're White Panther all of a sudden?" He said it's actually White Wolf. Which was great. White Wolf is a comic character, but he's also Bucky was called that at the end of was that the end credit scene of Black Panther? I think it was.
Yes.
Was it? I thought it was the. Oh, okay, I thought it was like right before whatever Infinity War movie.
Yeah,
Which doesn't make
so
sense.
Black Panther. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like right after the Wakanda stuff. I think I don't. Who knows anymore? There's so many of these. I was just watching Thor: The Dark World yesterday over at my in-laws because she's watching. My mother-in-law is watching them in order right now, so chronological order. So she's on Thor: The Dark World. I said I'm so sorry, and we watched that one last night. And she started watching Iron Man 3 before we left as well. So I'll ask her today if she finished it or not. But I want to go over there. Yeah, I want to go over there for like when she watches Guardians, really, because she's never seen those. So I think that'd be interesting. She asked if they're actually like attached to it. Like she's like, are they just like, like do they ever, I guess, like meet type of thing? And I'm like, oh yeah, they're a big part of it. Like, don't worry. But yeah, so now they go into, Bucky gets in jail, and we get him getting released. And it's not the doctor that releases him, right? It's, who guessed? Captain America, right? And another thing that rubbed people the wrong way, and I didn't really pick up on it, but people on Twitter saying that one reason they don't like John is because they refer to Bucky as an asset, right? He says he's an asset to, like whatever, to the mission. Because that's kind of how, the Russians saw Bucky, is not as really like a person, but as an asset. And he gets Bucky out of there. The therapist says, all right, we got to have a meet. Like part of it is like, we got to have a meeting like right now, right? A session right now. And you're coming with me, Sam. And does she have any control over this? I mean, I feel like if I'm Sam, I'd just be like, no, I'm not actually part of this whole court mandated thing. So I'm out of here. But we do get a good scene.
I was gonna say it's a great scene because my favorite's when they like get close to each other, and she's like, "You gotta get closer to each other," and they get like
they
right
get,
at
like,
each other.
what they get
Yeah.
like their knees in the pelvic region.
Oh
you know.
yeah. Oh yeah.
But
Like you're.
groin, pretty much.
Yeah.
They got
And then
themselves
she goes.
nice and close.
Yeah. And then
Matt
she
was like,
goes.
God, I wish I was Sam right now.
Oh God. She
You were
probably
like,
was.
were you watching me while I was watching it?
Yes,
Right.
I was. Yeah, I
No,
don't know,
but
one
speaking.
of those Google Home or Nest videos.
Yeah. Speaking of watching, he was like, she goes, so Dr. Rayner was like, you guys look into each other's eyes. And then they start looking at each other into their eyes. And then she goes, are you guys having a staring contest?
Yeah, I
That's
loved Sam saying to Bucky, like, you're going to love this one because they were getting on him this whole episode about the stare.
Right.
But like I love the scene because it had those bit of comedy bits, but then it also, when they're with the therapist, that's when Bucky kind of like, they really go into why did you give it up? Why did you give up the shield? And when Bucky goes like, if he was wrong about you, then he was wrong about me. And I think that line is the whole point into, I think, I feel like that line was the whole thing as to why Bucky is so angry at Sam for giving away the shield, because he doesn't want to be the person he was in the past,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and he's probably talking about when Steve said to him, it wasn't you that did those things, Buck. It was somebody else, when he was the Winter Soldier. And, it's making him think, well, if you're giving up the shield, then he was wrong about you, and maybe I was the one that did those things. And this is tying into his whole thing of trying to make amends, right? Which we didn't see this episode, but we saw in the first one.
Yeah. So kind of going back to when they get stopped by the cops, though, is that there's a moment when the cop says to Sam, it's Bucky's getting arrested for missing his court-mandated therapy. I felt like you saw like this look in Sam of like, wait, what? Like, why is this guy going through court-mandated therapy? And that entire scene between the cops stopping them and, obviously it very modern type of like setup. It was racial profiling Sam. And you saw that. And, Bucky was seeing kind of one side of someone's struggle. And then Sam is then seeing something that he didn't really realize or think about with Bucky. And after that scene, I was like, that scene is going to be something that brings them together, because they're going to realize, that, yes, they're two people who are Avengers, and, maybe certain things in their life have been very different, obviously, than anybody else is going to ever have in their life, because they're Avengers. They save the world. And even though their lives have been completely different up until then, they didn't know some of these real personal struggles. And I felt like that at that moment between those two events, I was like, they're not gonna, it might not be super easy, but that's gonna be what brings them legitimately together. And then when the therapist was there and they finally started opening up and Bucky says that whole line, I was like, I thought that was one of the parts that made the episode great. I was like, you're not only progressing the storyline and, it's got all this stuff we love about Marvel, but it's going deeper and deeper into these characters that we never got to see before. And I think that's just what makes the show, and it did it for WandaVision too, but I thought going into the show, getting to learn more about these two guys was what I wanted to come out with it. And it's already happening 2 episodes in.
Yeah, definitely. And the next step is pretty much to get out of the jail, and Walker calls him over with the siren, right? And he asks them again to work with him, and they say no, right? And then he says, well, then stay out of my way. And I feel like we got to see the real John Walker there. I'm not sure if he has a temper issue. They kept telling him at the beginning, like, you're not going to be able to just punch your way out of things now as Captain America, is what his, like, girlfriend and Hoskins told him earlier. And now it's like, stay out of my way. Oh, we didn't even get into the fact that they tracked down, the way they tracked down the Flag Smashers was through Red Wing, right? Which was alluded to in the first episode when Sam is trying to fix Red Wing, and he says something about like how, the government has been, I guess like repairing it or something. It was a government issued thing as well, so they tracked it. But yeah, so we're going with Bucky and Sam on their own. It means they're going to come up against Cap again, probably at some point, right? And they also had to deal with the Flag Smasher. And who better to help them out than Helmut Zemo from Civil War, who's in Berlin in jail and knows stuff about Hydra. And that's when Bucky says, Isaiah Bradley wasn't talking about my people being white. He meant my people as in Hydra. And who better to go help us than Zemo, who we put back in prison. Geez, that would have been 7 years ago from the point of when this story is taking place. Who knows if maybe we'll find out if Zemo, blipped at all, if he was in the snap, or if and I guess they'll maybe get him out of prison to help them on this journey. He might do a little bit of a turn from villain to like anti-hero, because he is part of a squad in the comics called the Thunderbolts, named after Thunderbolt Ross, the guy who was in Civil War, and Incredible Hulk and all that. And they usually, it's almost like a Suicide Squad type thing for Marvel, where they bring in villains to, do some heroic thing. So maybe Zemo, maybe they'll build to that at some point, but I think we get Zemo out of prison either through a breakout or they get him out, which is, I'm assuming he might get like released into their custody or something.
I was reading an interesting thing that like Zemo, and he wears it like, as in part of the comics.
Oh, the purple hood.
The purple hood. And
I
read why he wears it, and because it seems like it just seems really weird. Like old Spider-Man back when Toby was like just putting on like the hood or the mask, the ski mask, and it said that the co-creator Jack Kirby hated drawing ears, and that's why he wears the hood. I was like, that's an interesting little.
That's awesome.
Pivot. So yeah.
Yeah, some people can't draw certain things. But yeah, he's got the purple hood.
I can't draw anything.
Hey, you know what? If you watch the trailer, he's got so his name is Helmut Zemo, but his title, like his comic title, is Baron Zemo. And he's got the purple hood. If you see the trailers, if you go back and watch the trailers, you'll see him carrying the hood, and it looks so good in live action. People were upset he didn't wear it in Civil War, but I'm like, this is what's so great about Marvel. You can bring these people back, at any time. Like, in the original superhero movies, if you look at like Batman 89, where they killed Joker off, and you look at like Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, and they kill off Green Goblin, and they, in the first one, they kill off Doc Ock. In the second one, spoilers, they kill, like, you don't have any room to bring those people back. The MCU has been really good at that, where, they can bring, like, Zemo was about to kill himself. Black Panther stops him, says, the living's not done with you yet. They put him in jail. Now they can use him again here. You have, Loki. And if this was if Thor was a early 2000s movie, Loki would have probably been dead at the end of the first one. But instead, he comes back in Avengers, he comes back in Thor the Dark World, he's in Ragnarok, he's in Infinity War, like, he's about to have his own show. Like, this is what you do when you're able to kind of further develop those characters and bring these heroes or villains back in other times. Like, who knows how long Isaiah Bradley is going to be in this show? Maybe he's just in this Baltimore scene, right? But who knows? Maybe down the road they need him for another show and they bring him back. Or his grandson, Eli, who's Patriot in the comics. Maybe he's going to be joining at some point because he learns of what his grandfather did, and he's like, oh, it's time for me to help, right? Like, this is what's so good about the MCU is these characters are out there for you to use, and you don't have to kill off. That was a staple in I feel like in the early 2000s and 90s, Batman and Spider-Man and all these movies were just up, and then that person's dead at the end of the movie, and we'll never see them again. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, we're able to, let's save them and bring them back another time, and we can do more with them. because this, and you can bring them back in different movies, like we saw with WandaVision, with bringing Darcy and Jimmy Woo into, a Scarlet Witch property.
Plus, it just gives us like the opportunity. I mean, as we're reviewing these episodes, and people are fans, and they're just subtle nods to kind of the nostalgic feeling of those movies, and kind of nodding back to Ant-Man, and like, oh yeah, I love Ant-Man, and then it gets you kind of hyped for Ant-Man again. So I really do like that Marvel does this.
Look, I wouldn't be surprised if, at the end of this, John Walker becomes a hero, and he's no longer Cap, but he's U.S. agent like he is in the comics. Like, I would love if that's what they do with him, because I actually think Wyatt Russell played this role really well in this episode, that I would love to see him come back for stuff further down the line. And don't forget, we still have Sharon Carter, who's in this show, and we haven't seen her yet. So maybe she's going to be in this episode that takes place next week with Zemo and them being in Germany. I just can't wait to see her again as well.
They mentioned her too, didn't they? Wasn't there a mention of her?
I don't know.
I think they mentioned her.
For the listeners,
said Sharon.
Yeah.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah.
For the listeners, I usually try to watch these things twice, as they know from our WandaVision recaps and stuff. But my power was out like all night last night, so I did not even get to watch it the first time until this morning. So I did not get to watch it twice this week. But maybe I'll watch both of these again before episode 3 and just see if there's anything else I picked up on.
Yeah, here it is. I found it. So it's, let's take the shield, Sam. Let's take the shield and do this ourselves. And then Sam's kind of just going on like, we can't just run up on the man and beat him up and take the shield. And Bucky goes, well, maybe we can. And, you remember what happened last time we did it. And then Sam goes,
I'll help
you
they
in case
mentioned
you
her
forgot.
then,
Yeah, and she's like, Sharon was branded enemy of the state, and Steve and I were on the run for 2 years.
Yeah, he's talking about the end of Civil War. For people that may not know, Steve takes the shield from Tony and walks off. And yeah, everybody's branded as a enemy of the state pretty much. So it makes sense that Sharon Carter is probably out of the country still, right? So maybe she's in Germany. And that we'll see in this next episode. Man, I'm loving this show though. This is exactly what I wanted from the show. This feels like the MCU every week. We're getting a new movie, I loved WandaVision, but those episodes sometimes were so short that you didn't feel like you were really getting, like, with so far both of these have been 50 minutes where you're like, all right, this is like, that's half of a movie, So we really in these 2 weeks have gotten like a feature length film almost.
Would you I'll ask you guys this before we go out, but like, would you rather them do this to, the ones that are existing that are still left, so that we can like get into more of Ant-Man or, the Guardians, or, if they had plans of going forward with some of these characters, do you hope that they do it in TV shows? So that way, like these miniseries, I mean, this is like going to be what, a 300-minute movie. I mean, it's going to be up there, and we get really good storylines, and they can really drag stuff out.
It's up in the air for me, because I think it's cool as a continuation, like seeing these characters and getting more deep. But I also think it's great as an intro. So far in my mind, that's what I think. We haven't had that yet, right? Like both of these shows so far have been characters we already know. Loki's going to be characters we already know. But when we get into like Miss Marvel in the fall and we're being introduced, I feel like that will help as well, because one thing I didn't like about the 2016 Doctor Strange movie is that, it was an origin story again, right? With Doctor Strange, but it had to fit a lot of the same beats and fit it in like 2 hours. With Miss Marvel, you're able to do episodes and introduce her over a time of 6 to 10 episodes, depending how long her show is. And you can really get to know the character before they make a jump into like, she's going to be in Captain Marvel too, so before they make that jump, you're able to get to know her through these. And then also people that are introduced in, like, say they don't watch Miss Marvel, they don't have Disney Plus, but then they watch Captain Marvel 2 and are like, oh, Miss Marvel was pretty cool. Oh, there's a show about her. Like, it works both ways. But what I like about this show is that we get these continuations of Bucky, Sam, Sharon, Baron Zemo, like characters that were part of it. It feels so much like Winter Soldier and Civil War, like that setting, and I really dig that setting in the MCU as well. So I think it works really well for realistic stuff, stuff that takes place on Earth. It's going to be able to have that heavy budget, but also not be and look really good. But like if we're talking like Guardians and stuff, I think a lot of the cosmic stuff, Fantastic Four, Guardians, Ant-Man, Quantumania, that stuff has to be in the movies, I think, just because they're going to have more time to finish it up. They're going to be able to spend a bigger budget on it and not have to worry about spreading it too thin. I mean, this show cost $25 million an episode. Game of Thrones used to be the most expensive with like $10 million an episode, I think it was. This is 25.
That's why we get so much. Maybe that's why we get so much Marvel content. They're like, we got to make this budget because these shows are going to get ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, and I think it seems like they wanted to launch it with characters you already know, right? With these and WandaVision, Loki, but I think that the ultimate goal is that this is how they're going to introduce a lot. Like if you look at their later lineup, it's like She-Hulk, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel. It's like all these characters that have not been introduced into the MCU yet that you're going to be able to kind of like be introduced to them and they'll come up in another thing. But it's also apparently this is something cool too. Hawkeye is supposed to premiere later this year. They're developing a spin-off for Hawkeye right now called Echo, or with the character Echo, who is in the Hawkeye series that's coming out. So something must have impressed them with what they're doing with Hawkeye and the person they cast for Echo, that they're like, you know what? We're going to spin that off too. Like, there's going to be so much content.
Isn't Moon Knight, isn't that Kit Harington?
No, it's Oscar Isaac.
Poe Dameron.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. And Kit's playing
in Eternals? Yeah,
Eternals
as Black Knight.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
Knight's in the title. So
yeah, I was gonna say it's Knight, but I couldn't remember because I knew like I just kind of associate like if Jon Snow, he's very Knight-like anyway, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and we got to talk too. They pushed back all these movies. Well, just 2 of them, right? So Black Widow is now going to be in July 9th, I think.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, because if the vaccines are all supposed to be distributed by by July 4th, as Biden says, then that's the perfect time to launch a new movie, I guess, without delaying everything. Because then you just push Shang-Chi, which was in July, to September, I think 3rd, and then you keep Eternals in November like they did, and then Spider-Man in December. So like, man, from July to December, we're getting 4 MCU films.
Welcome out of the pandemic. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be so great.
I can't wait. In August, I get to go see Suicide Squad, which is going to be good too. So that's a lot of movies that I have to crunch in there at some point. It's like 1 a month. Okay, I guess last thoughts here. We'll do last thoughts. Matt, any last thoughts on this episode and what you want to see going into episode 3?
Ooh. Well, final thoughts is easily the best episode between any of the shows they've done. It really has made me excited to see what the last 4 are like. So I honestly, in terms of structure and what happens in episodes and with, the different bits of comedy and storylines, I don't think they need to really change their structure a whole lot because I think what they have works really well. It's just a matter of progressing, and I hope we see continued progression between Bucky and Sam. I hope we kind of get to see a rivalry between those two and John Walker and Lamar.
Battlestar,
Yeah, I would love to see more of Isaiah too. Like I hope he has a decent part to play in this, especially if just kind of learn a little bit more about a character that we don't have a lot of information besides in the comics about too. And then definitely to see Sharon Carter show up as well. It's just fun. They're bringing back some characters, like you guys said, from the past where, we're going to probably get to see a lot of Zemo in the next episode, I would have to think. He'll play a pretty big role too. But it's just, I really just want to see it keep progressing because what they have right now, I think, has worked incredibly well, and I just don't think they don't need to go outside the realm of what they can do to make people really enjoy this show.
Yeah, I think it would be cool if we got like some flashbacks or like some like video reels, like how they had for Cap for Isaiah Bradley. That would be really cool, showing some of his, or maybe even a flashback with Bucky since he fought him. You know, maybe he has a nightmare about it, like he did. Maybe that's another amends he has to make, right? Logan, your thoughts on the episode as a whole, and then what you want to see going forward.
Yeah, so on the episode, easily my favorite of both WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like you said, Jordan, it's more like WandaVision would get you build up and then get the ball rolling, and then the ball would just continue in the next week. So it kind of had a lag in a little bit. But this one, it just feels like it's action-packed from start to finish. It's only 6, so I get why they're a little bit more action-packed, and there's a lot of stuff going on. Going forward, I kind of hope, and Jordan, I don't know if like this is the end. You know a lot more about the comics. I just hope I hope that Falcon and Winter Soldier keep going. I don't know what their situation is with contracts and different things with the two of them. But
there were some rumors of maybe a second series, like a second season, but it would have a different name. Mm-hmm. And any guesses why? Probably because Falcon won't be Falcon.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I don't know. I hope going forward that it's not the end of the two, because I really, really like these two characters, and the more that they develop them, because I think they saw a lot of just being. I mean, Bucky gets a lot more, I think, than Sam does as far as Limelight's concerned, because you have the whole movie with Bucky, with Winter Soldier. But I think that I hope going forward, one, it kind of builds more into their story and they can keep going, and two, I really hope that we get maybe another appearance from another Avenger, at least somewhere. That'd be a lot of fun, like kind of a leading into whatever is next. I hope it kind of has a bridge there, because I don't think it's going to make sense with Loki being next to have a character built in. So what is the next movie? Like if it's, chronologically, it's not Black Widow because she's, dead.
Yeah, it would probably be Shang-Chi,
so maybe,
or Shang-Chi as is how it's spelled, but apparently it's pronounced Shang-Chi. So
yeah, so maybe we get some of that.
Maybe.
But yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. It's such a good show. I'm so excited every week to watch it.
Yeah, I contract-wise, I'm not really certain on that. I do know that originally, apparently in the early stages of Far From Home, we were supposed to see Sam's Captain America in it. And I guess they removed that maybe because of the show. I'm not really sure how that worked out, even though Far From Home takes place 8 months after the blip. This is 6 months after the blip. It could have probably still worked out. But yeah. So we'll catch you all next week, guys. I do want to show, I do want to just say where we are if you want to follow us on Twitter and such, is at TO Infinity Saga on Twitter, Facebook.com/Infinity Saga Beyond, email marvelplusrecaps@gmail.com. I do also want to say, like I said before, I was starting a DC side thing on here called Elseworlds. My first episode of that I'm going to record this weekend. We're going to talk Suicide Squad trailer. We're going to talk Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max. So, and Pierce Brosnan was cast in the new Black Adam movie. So I'll talk about all those things on there, and you'll probably see it on the feed along with this, like within a day. So thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next time.